Random sampling, it doesn't mean haphazard or going out there willy-nilly and just start talking to people, conducting surveys. It means without bias for any particular person. So in other words, each person has an equal chance of being selected for a survey on any given day, okay? And that's what random sampling, random selection means. And how we achieve that random selection is beginning at a starting point and counting back to the fifth person. That's your person to select for the survey, for the interview. Conduct that survey, count 5 more people back, whether it's in the chairlift line, the maze, or in a restaurant, or at a table. That's the person that you select. So if we have everybody doing it the same way, establishing a counting procedure, in theory, that's one way of how we're mixing the pot, stirring the sample, and everyone's having an equal probability of being selected for a survey, okay? If you're doing it in the restaurants, and you walk in, you go to a table, you start at a point, you count 5 people over, that's the person you select. You go to the next table, count 5 people over, that's your person for selection. You would do it on the left one time, or the right on the one time, left time next time. Another way of mixing it up. Okay.
But is there a minimum age requirements, or is it an age?
Yeah, we're generally, we'll get to that later, but also saying that recommending 15 and older.
Okay.
Generally not interviewing kids for the survey because they wouldn't be able to answer a lot of the questions in terms of expenditures and how the trip was booked and things like that. Some of them they could, experiential things and demographics.
Is the data any different between like a snowboarder and a skier who answers the questionnaire? I mean,
they're different. I mean, they're, again, that's another, we look at snowboarders and skiers. And
I'm sorry?
There is, yeah, and
Snowboarders are drinking their PBRs.
right. No, and that's been an emphasis of NSAA and SIA and other groups because snowboarding's been participation's been on a decline more so than skiing has. And why is that? And what's going on? So that we do track that, and there are differences. You know, more predominantly male. Females tend to drop out of snowboarding younger than males do. Stick with it. Crossover to skiing. Yeah. So yeah, definitely there are differences. Another important component of the research is having a good knowledge at your resort of how the traffic flows are and what the different volumes are based on different lifts, different pods or sections of the mountain. Different restaurants will have different volumes, and in theory you should be developing your sampling plan so that essentially the number of surveys you're doing generally reflects what those volumes are and what those traffic flows are throughout the mountain, right? Makes sense?
So I have one question on that.
Yeah, yeah.
So if you're doing a table, I mean, if you want a large sample size, if you're talking 5,000, why? I mean, it's not random enough to do like the whole table with 5 people. But do you think that would be too?
Yeah, because more than likely there's a lot. You're trying to avoid getting people from the same group because they're going to have a lot of the same characteristics for the most part.
But if you're looking at it in a large scale.
Large scale, you know, out of 5,000 surveys, doing, you know, if you do that occasionally, it's probably not going to make a blip in the data, but by and large, that would be considered not a proper random selection technique.
But Snowbird's not doing 5,000.
No. Some resorts do 5 or 6,000 surveys just by themselves because they're tracking results, you know, weekly or daily even in some cases.
But you said Snowbird's only doing like 2,000, right?
I think so, yeah.
That's what we're guessing we're going to do. But if all of Utah is doing only 6,000.
Right.
But the practicality of it, I mean, sometimes data and the ideal theory of how you should do it and then how it's actually implemented. Meaning if you always go for the seat, what happens is you have a family sit down, sir, can I do the survey? No, but my wife will do it. I'm not interested in your wife, I just want you to.
Right.
And
Right.
it's like-
And-
Person back is a
3-year-old sits in that.
five-year-old.
Yeah.
Right, and actually, and I have,
Well, even if it's on the survey. usually-
We'll get to that.
Yeah.
I have that coming up also, right. Yeah, I mean, and I also say, this is as much art as it is science, you know, it takes a little common sense and working with people and obviously you have to be, you know, staff have to be comfortable approaching different kinds of people and, you know, trying to coerce them to take a survey in some cases, but you do need to try to be firm about the person that you select at random is the person you wanna talk to.
Well, are we gonna stop pins and stuff to, you know, I think, I mean, the way I would handle that is that, you know, if I say, well, I really need a, you know, mail or whatever, and if you fill this up, then your whole table gets a pin, or
Right.
something, you know, if we can do something like that would, cause usually they wanna fill it out cause they all want their sticker.
That's a good point.
Right.
It'd be nice if we had more incidents than we need surveys.
We have
Because-
50% off coupons to Christie's.
Well, in the past, what I've done.
The stickers and pins were great.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the past, what I've done though is the three.
That's all I need.
We'll have to fill out the survey to get
And
the
then
guys.
I'll get the whole table and want to do it, cause I want the sticker, but if I can just, if I'm gonna do a random, instead of, I'll just do you, but then I can give, you know, stickers maybe to the whole.
Like
We'll have lots of
peer
stickers.
pressure, too.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I gotta do it.
Yeah, that would work good, I think that would work really well.
So I'll cover some of that in more detail as well as we move through here. Again, some more examples of, some silly examples of potential sampling error. So for example, if we were doing a phone survey, you wouldn't call the first 1,000 people out of the phone book. You probably wouldn't get through the A's, right? So you'd proportion that every nth one throughout the phone book, so you got a good sampling A to Z. Same applies at the ski area. You know, you wouldn't interview the first 25 people in line or everybody at the same table, right? Because you want to space that out, have a counting procedure, and space out the proportion of sampling that you're selecting from the general population. Okay. Surveys placed in public places, we talked a bit about that earlier, not doing that. Again, you're getting the huggers and the haters when you do that on both ends of the spectrum, and we're missing everybody in the middle potentially that's not taking a survey. Also, the same person can respond more than once, stuffing the ballot box, so to speak. They might fill out 5 surveys if they have a particular gripe or a point they're trying to make.